Welcome to Fusion Grain Cooking. In today's show, we're going to be talking about buckwheat. Buckwheat is a fabulous grain. We're going to be doing a wonderful buckwheat salad, buckwheat rustic bread, and we're doing a wonderful buckwheat pancake. But we're going to put a twist on this pancake. We're going to actually fry the pancake. Welcome to Fusion Grain Cooking, where we take the food you eat every day and fuse them with grains to make food that not only tastes great, but it's good for you. In this show, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite grains, buckwheat. Buckwheat actually is not a grain, it's an herb, but a very useful herb at that. It comes from Russia. In Russia, they make kasha with it. In America, we make pancakes. In Japan, they make soba. And in Italy, they make pasta with it. So it's an absolutely versatile grain. I love it. It comes in 3 different types, or 3 flavors. I like to say chocolate, vanilla, and strawberry, but it's 3 flavors. The chocolate one, the dark one, is the whole buckwheat. It means it still has the skin on it. The hull is already on it. The second one, which I call vanilla, is the hulled buckwheat. They take the hull off of it. The brown skin or shell is taken off of it. And the third one, which is strawberry, is where they take the whole buckwheat. They call it kasha. They take the whole buckwheat and they roast it. And the roasting of it gives it that kind of brownish, reddish color to it. Fabulous. Now the uses of the 3 different ones, the one you would use in the whole buckwheat, W-H-O-L-E, you would use to grind it only to make flour. And we have some flour, fresh ground flour right here. The other 2, the kasha has a really strong pronounced flavor, and that's what they use to make those Middle Eastern or Russian salads, the tabbouleh and things like that. And it has a kind of a smoky, distinct flavor to it. The third one, the hulled, H-U-L-L-E-D buckwheat, is the one that I prefer to use because it has a really nice, mild flavor. These other 2 can be ground into flours and used also, but remember, buckwheat is gluten-free, so it doesn't make breads, but it's great for adding to pastries. Buckwheat, nutritionally, is wonderful. It's very high in fiber. It's a perfect protein, meaning it has 8 or more essential amino acids. It's just a fabulously nutritious grain. I love buckwheat, and you're going to have a whole different attitude about it after this show. Well, let's start with making our bread today. We're going to make a wonderful, actually 2 things, a wonderful rustic style bread, and we're going to make some goat cheese rolls. I love making bread with buckwheat. Now remember, buckwheat is not related to the wheat family at all, so it doesn't have any gluten in it to make bread, but it's a wonderful addition to breads. And the buckwheat, when you grind it up fresh, you get those little specks of buckwheat in there that add character, but most of all, the flavor. It really gives it a rustic, I like to say farmhouse flavor. It just tastes like earthy, wonderful food, but not earthy in a bad sense, earthy in fresh, wonderful organic style food. For making breads, I use a base of a natural white flour or the bromine-free flour, and then we add the buckwheat to it, and we're going to add a couple other things to it. Now, to grind it fresh, we already have our fresh ground buckwheat. We used our grinder. And remember, we've talked about that in other segments, how a wheat grinder is essential for optimal nutrition in your home because you can take those grains like buckwheat, run them through the grinder, and you have that fresh ground flour for making pancakes or pasta or whatever you're going to do with that wonderful buckwheat. So we have our flour ground here. This beautiful buckwheat flour is ground and ready to go. I have some nice hot water here. Well, I always keep a kettle of warm water going here. And this is kind of nice warm water today. But I don't worry about the heat of the water because when we do it the method I'm going to show you, you never have to worry about that. So we're going to add a little bit of oil in there. And our sweetener, we're using some zagave for the sweetener. Zagave in breads is wonderful because it's very high in inulin, which gives bread a little more of a rise too, so that's great. And we have a cup of sourdough starter. And sourdough starter is great. This is a 90-year-old Alaskan starter that really helps out with the texture of the bread. Now, I have some cocoa nibs here. Now, cocoa nibs are a wonderful byproduct of cocoa. It's where they take the cocoa and they crack it, and it's just fresh and packed full of nutrition, and it's going to give the bread a wonderful texture, and it's going to add to that earthy, wonderful flavor. And of course, we want to add our salt, because bread without salt is absolutely horrible. Now, I hope you noticed there how I measured exactly. Do you like that, how I measure? I do that on purpose to show you that bread making doesn't have to be an exact science. If you're in there making it a scientific experience and you're stressful about making your bread, you're doing something wrong. It should never be stressful. It should just be a pleasant experience. And if you get pretty close either way, you're going to be okay. So now we have most of the ingredients in there. We're going to put in a couple heaping cups of this beautiful buckwheat flour. And then we're going to add a cup of the white flour. And then I take my instant yeast and I put that, again, measured perfectly on top of the flour. And then I'm going to add white flour, or you could use a whole grain spelt flour with this if you wanted, or a whole grain wheat flour. We're going to add the flour until it cleans the sides of the bowl. So we're going to turn this on. And normally you would use the lid. If you're doing this at home, always put the lid on, but I'm not using the lid today because I want you to see how that mixes in there. And look how pretty that is. Oh my goodness. With that dark buckwheat flour and those beautiful cocoa nibs, this is going to be a beautiful bread. So I'm just going to keep adding until we pull away from the sides. And it's only going to take a moment to do that. And this is really important that you follow that step. No matter what the recipe calls for, you let your mixer tell you when to quit adding the flour. Too much flour makes those doughs stiff and heavy, especially when you start adding other grains to your breads. You want to keep them as light as possible. So you're watching that, and you just keep adding flour until it cleans away. Once it cleans the sides, then you stop adding flour and you time it for 6 minutes. Okay, one more little dash of flour on there, and we're going to turn this up one more speed. There you go, that is beautiful. Now we're going to let this knead for 6 minutes. Now the next step after we've mixed that beautiful dough is to take it out of the mixer. I always put a little oil on the counter and then take my dough out and just fold it under. The more flour you use, the stiffer the dough is going to be, so I don't add any more flour once it's done mixing. So we have this beautiful, oh my goodness, that's just gorgeous. The cocoa nibs in there just give it character, and the buckwheat gives it that beautiful rustic brown look on there. It's beautiful. So now we're going to form a loaf, a freestanding loaf, and then we're going to form some wonderful goat cheese stuffed rolls. So we're just going to take a portion of this, and we're going to take and form a loaf. And we just want a nice freestanding loaf. So I'm kind of kneading everything in, and I'm going to turn it over, and I'm going to form a round ball. And we just want to get out any air that might be in there. And then we have this beautiful ball, and notice how we're forming it up. If you have it up, it's not going to be a flat loaf. We want a nice standing up loaf. And we're going to set this on our parchment covered pan, and we're going to let that rise to double. And then we're going to take it, you can do it before or after, let it rise, and we're going to slash it with a serrated knife. Okay, and you want to use this serrated knife because it won't pull the dough, it'll just cut right into it. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do it before just to show you how to do that. You just take the knife and go across the top. If you want a nice design on there, just go again across the top like that, and you have a beautiful rustic loaf of bread. We're going to let it rise double, bake it in our 400-degree preheated oven, drop the temperature down to about 325, and bake it for about 25 minutes or until it's a nice golden brown. It's going to be beautiful. Okay, let's set that aside. Now we're going to form those wonderful goat cheese rolls. And the first thing I'm going to do, I have this little dough, I call it a dough divider. I'm going to divide the dough up. And if you take your dough, I cut it in half, and then I cut each piece in half. And then I take these pieces and cut those in half. This way, it's they're all going to be pretty much the same size. And then I'm going to cut these in half. They're going to all be close to the same size. Okay, and then now I have these cut in half, and I'm just going to take this and kind of form it into a round, like a hockey puck style. Okay, and then once it's formed kind of round, I'm going to take a chunk of a firm goat cheese, and I'm going to press that in the middle, and then I'm going to take this dough, and I'm going to crimp it up. See how I'm just kind of pinching that together? The dough, it's still nice and sticky, so it's going to stick together really well. And then I'm going to take that nice little round ball I have, and I'm going to dip it in a little bit of slightly melted butter and put it in the pan. And then I'm going to start the process over again, and this goes very quickly. It won't take long, and we'll have a beautiful pan of wonderful. Now the cocoa nibs and the buckwheat and the cheese is all going to go for making a beautiful roll. And these, obviously, are going to be best eaten when they're warm because the cheese is going to be nice and melted. And you want to make sure you crimp it up really nice, because when you crimp it up really nice, the cheese isn't going to melt out onto the pan. You might get some that do that occasionally, but you want to keep the cheese in there as much as you can. Form it, dip it in butter, put it in the pan. And we're going to be able to put 9 rolls in this pan, and we're going to bake them. We're going to let them rise till they're double, and then again bake them in a 400-degree preheated oven. Drop the temperature down to about 325 degrees and bake them until they're a beautiful golden brown. Now it's time for the Chef Brad tip of the day. For today's tip, I want to talk about the importance of having your children come in the kitchen and participate in that cooking process. It's so important that we take the time when they're younger, so when they're older, they enjoy being in the kitchen. Nothing's worse than being too busy and not having the time to spend with our children in the kitchen. Then they kind of, in their mind, they kind of think that's not a fun place to be. I have learned over the years, regardless the mess, regardless the time it takes, it always pays off in the future if we bring our children around us into the kitchen and we share that cooking process with them from the preparation even to the cleanup. We need to have our children involved in that process. Simple things like that bring long-term lasting results that bless the entire family for years to come, and sometimes even for generations. When we come back, we're going to be making a fabulous buckwheat banana pan-fried pancake. Welcome back. Now we're going to make those fabulous, it's a mouthful of words, buckwheat, buttermilk, banana, pan-fried pancakes. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Here we go. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to crack some eggs and put in here. And I found that the more egg in the pancake, actually the fluffier and the better the pancake is. So we're going to put in 4 to 5 eggs. And let's just make it an even 5. There you go. We're going to whisk our eggs up. And then we're going to add some buttermilk to this. There we go. A dash of vanilla. That was a big dash, by the way. Some melted butter. And the melted butter, I love the butter in there. It's just going to make them buttery and nice. And then just a dash of zagave to sweeten it up just a little bit. We don't want it to be too sweet, but just a little bit to sweeten it up and bring out the natural sweetness of the bananas. And then we're going to put in just a little dash of salt, not much, but enough to just bring out the flavor, and our bananas. And we have 2 mashed bananas. We're going to whisk those together. And then we're going to add our fresh ground buckwheat flour. And we just want to add enough to make it that pancake texture. And you've all made enough pancakes to know what that pancake texture is like. Okay, we're going to whisk that in there. Now, one of the reasons that we're going to pan fry these pancakes is to camouflage the buckwheat. I remember the first time I made buckwheat pancakes for my family, they were not too excited about it. Okay, there we go. Beautiful. And I'm going to put in just a little bit more buttermilk. Give it just a little bit more runny texture. And then the final ingredient I always add, the last thing I always add to my pancakes, is the baking powder. Here's our baking powder, and we use Rumford's baking powder. It's aluminum free and it works great. A little bit of Rumford's in there. We're going to whisk the Rumford's in, and then we're going to leave it alone. And that makes a fluffy, nice pancake. Beautiful. Now we're going to cook the pancakes, and we have a wonderful non-stick pan, and we're going to spray just a light spray on there. Even though it's non-stick, I always use a little bit of spray. And then we're going to take our pancake batter, and we're going to put about a half a cup of batter. We don't want to make really large pancakes because we're going to coat them in panko. And you can use a griddle, an electric griddle, whatever you have at home to cook your pancakes on. And they're going to cook very quickly, bubbling up, and then you can just check them after a moment to see if they're done. If your spatula has a hard time going in like that, you know they're probably not quite ready to turn over. So just be patient and give them a minute, and they'll turn over perfectly. Our syrup here is looking great. It's simmering, it's nice and thick. It's going to be fabulous over these pancakes. Okay, let's just check and see how this goes. There we go. Beautiful. These are going to be fabulous pancakes. There we go. Now we're going to let those finish cooking. And a great way to tell if they're done, if you're not quite sure, just take the edge of your spatula and put it in there and just do a poke. And you can see that's just a little bit doughy, so we want to give it another minute. The thing I really love about buckwheat pancakes is the flavor. They just have a wonderful kind of farm fresh flavor to them that I absolutely love. And think of all the nutrition you're getting. And this is 100% whole grain buckwheat. Now we're going to take these beautiful pancakes and we're going to dip them in egg and panko, and we have a little bit of oil, probably about a 1/4 of an inch of oil in our pan to pan fry them. So we have our pancake here and we're just going to dip it in the egg. And then we're going to take the panko and just press the panko into the pancake. And then we're going to take this and just drop it down in the oil. This is a great way to use all those leftover pancakes that you have. You can put these in the refrigerator, and then the next day you can have your pan-fried pancakes. And I don't fry food a lot, but every now and then it really is a treat. And because these are 100% whole grain, it's almost a healthy treat. Beautiful. Then we'll do one more and our pan will be perfectly filled. Buckwheat is gluten-free. If you wanted to use gluten-free breadcrumbs, then you would have a totally gluten-free breakfast. Now we're going to take our tongs and just lift this up, and this one should be ready to turn. Oh, look at that. That is absolutely beautiful. It almost looks like you're breading a chicken breast or something. But it's going to be light and wonderful. We'll give that one just another minute. Oops. There we go. Turn that over. And they work better when the pancakes are just a little bit colder, so they're actually going to work better the next day. Oh, that is absolutely beautiful. This is great. Now we're going to let these fry. We're going to finish up frying them, and then we're going to pull together a wonderful salad using the buckwheat groats, the whole buckwheat groats. Welcome back. Our pancakes are done. Our bread is out of the oven, and now we're going to throw together a wonderful salad with the buckwheat groats. Now for the buckwheat groats, I took both kinds, the whole and the kasha. So it's the one that hasn't been roasted and the one that was roasted. And we cooked it kind of like brown rice. And you hear it and chilled it down, and it's ready to go. So this is the first ingredient that we're going to pour into our bowl. It's a beautiful grain. And then we have right here some beautiful mozzarella balls, fresh mozzarella balls, and we're going to dump those in there. Beautiful. And we have some fresh cashews to give it a little bit of texture and crunch. And then we have some roasted red peppers, and we're going to take these and chop these up to put in a salad. And I love roasted red peppers. And you know, you can roast them yourself or you can buy them. And I usually just buy them by the big cans because I use them in a lot of different things. And then we have a little bit of fresh basil. We're going to chop this up. And basil always adds a freshness to a salad. And I'm going to leave it in kind of big pieces. I like that. and some red onion, and we're going to toss the red onion in there. Beautiful. And we're just going to toss this. Nice and colorful. And for the dressing, we're just going to do a really simple dressing. Remember, I love those simple dressings. We're going to put a Tuscan herb olive oil on there. That's great. And then we have a nice 18-year-old balsamic vinegar. And balsamic vinegar is fabulous. And then a little bit of lemon-flavored flax oil. And lemon-flavored flax oil is just going to add to the earthiness of the wonderful grain. We're going to stir this up and place it in a salad here to serve. Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. The color, oh, it's just fabulous. Okay, now we're going to take the pancakes, and we're going to serve them two different styles. One, we're going to take one of the pancakes, and we're just going to place it down here, and we have a beautiful strawberry syrup, and we're just going to pour this over the pancake. And this is going to be kind of our sweet version of this pancake. Now remember, on this pancake, if you're not a fan of buckwheat, you can use any of the whole grains and make a fabulous pan-fried pancake. And the other, we're going to take one of the pancakes right here, and we're just going to serve this salad over this pancake. And that's just going to be a wonderful way to eat this salad. You're going to have that crunchy pancake underneath with the earthy buckwheat flavor, and it's just going to enhance everything that's there together. Now over here we have our beautiful breads, and this is, I just got to cut into that and just show you how beautiful the inside of that bread is. With those cocoa nibs in there, absolutely lovely. And the flavor of this bread, when you take a bite of it, is what you taste is the wonderful buckwheat. And then you get those little crunches of those fabulous cocoa nibs in there. A wonderful bread. Now the cheese bread, let's just slice into this and show you the inside of the cheese bread. We have that wonderful melted cheese on the inside. So you're getting a fabulous bread with the cheese, and this will be great with a soup or a salad. Let's see how these pancakes taste. This is so pretty. I just love the crunch of these pancakes with a little bit of strawberry. Oh my goodness. That's the crunchiest pancake I've ever eaten. The crunch is fabulous. The wonderful flavor of the buckwheat and the strawberry syrup. This is a very healthy breakfast. And this one, oh, I just love the look of that. Isn't that so pretty? The pancake there with the salad. You're going to get an extra treat. A piece of cheese on that wonderful pancake with those grains. Completely different experience, but a fabulous experience at that. The lemon enhanced the grains perfectly. The buckwheat on the pancake, that's fabulous. I hope you have loved this show as much as I've loved preparing the food and tasting the food. It's absolutely delicious. One quick thing about breads that I want to mention. You know, any type of bread makes an ordinary meal into a gourmet experience. You can take even a simple soup or salad, add a fresh baked bread to it, and have a gourmet experience. And fresh baked breads that you make at home aren't filled with the preservatives and all the other stuff that comes in them. They're good for you, healthy for the body, but more importantly, homemade breads are good for you emotionally. The thought of coming home to the smell of homemade bread just is one of those wonderful, beautiful things about life. And whether it's a bread made with buckwheat flour or whatever kind of flour you do, just remember the power of homemade bread and how it'll take any meal and turn it into a fabulous gourmet experience. Remember, buckwheat, 9 essential amino acids, perfect nutrition for your body, whether you use the whole grain ground up or the buckwheat growth or the kasha. You're going to be getting great nutrition. Not only nutrition, fabulous, fabulous taste using buckwheat in your everyday diet.